typically, when a customer comes to me, they say, we need to have a pen test. And what they almost always mean is, we need to have a pen test of our website. And that is certainly one important element of pen testing, but it's not the only one by any means. Penetration tests or pen tests are divided up into multiple different elements, and depending on how your business is structured, what you need to do is cherry pick the elements that are appropriate to you and make sure that all of them get tested in order to be able to say that you've done a full pen test of your business. Elements of pen tests might be firstly your website, so a web application penetration test. Another popular or common element that lots of businesses need doing is an external infrastructure pen test. This is where the pen testers scan all of your external internet-facing IP addresses. Those can be for your remote workers, they can be for your cloud servers, they can be the external interfaces of routers that give access into your internal network if you've got an on-premises network. Then another element that is commonly required is internal infrastructure, which is a test of all of the assets within your internal network. So that could be your workstations and your internal servers and your internal API servers and your the list is endless. There could be absolutely anything inside of your VoIP setup, for example. That's another thing you might need testing. But yes, an internal infrastructure versus external infrastructure added to web application. Your API servers might need testing specifically, so you could have an API server pen test. If you've got routers and firewalls within your network, then you could have a configuration review for your internal firewalls. You could have a configuration review for your switches. You could have a configuration review for your routers. You might have a database configuration review to make sure that your database specifically is running according to best practice. You could have a wireless network assessment, which would mean that a test to make sure that your office Wi-Fi is secure. Modern reviews might come down to your cloud-based infrastructure, so you might have an Office 365 configuration review. You might have a AWS configuration review or an Azure configuration review. You might have a SharePoint configuration review to make sure that your SharePoint is not exposing information to the internet at large, and also to make sure that it's running in the most restricted possible context, so that only the people within your organization have access to the data that they need, and not access to all of the data that is contained within your SharePoint servers. So what I'm trying to say here is really that there are lots of different types of pen test, or elements of a pen test, that you need to choose which ones are appropriate to you and make sure they all get done. How much does a pen test cost? Most websites that you go on will have a contact us form, and they'll say get in touch with us. We will take you through the process of scoping, which is working out all of these elements that need covering from within the test. And then once the scoping is done, they'll say, okay, we think it's going to take a total of 10 days testing and 3 days report writing, for example, and they'll give you a price based off the total of the time required. Depending on which elements you've selected, that cost might be 3 days, might be 5 days, might be 100 days. You never know, depending on the size of your organization and the number of different elements that need to be covered off in order to make sure you've got a comprehensive test. Penetration testing is normally done by highly qualified and practiced individuals, and therefore comes with a commensurately quite high price tag. Typically your penetration testing provider will give you a cost on a day rate, so that might be £500 a day, it might be £1,000 a day, it might be £1,200 a day. It really depends on the provider, but there's a big range of different day rates. But conventionally, any test that you have done will be based on the number of elements that you select that need testing, and then a number of days that those tests will require to complete, and a number of days that it will take to write up all of the issues identified during those tests into one large report, which will be made up of multiple different elements or phases of the pen test. If you've never had a pen test done against your business, then pen testing may be necessary, it may be required as part of a compliance regime, or it may be required as part of a supply chain arrangement. But vulnerability scanning can be done at a much lower cost than penetration testing. And if you're towards the beginning of your security journey, then it may be a more appropriate solution. The difference between vulnerability scanning and pen testing is that a pen tester will carry out vulnerability scans, and then when they identify vulnerabilities, they will attempt to exploit those vulnerabilities and see how far into your network they can get, what data they're able to gain access to. And then they'll give you a report saying, these were the vulnerabilities we identified, these were the ones we were able to exploit, and this is where we were able to get in terms of compromising your network by exploiting the vulnerabilities present. It may just be that a vulnerability scan gives you enough information to start fixing vulnerabilities at a much lower cost than if you pay someone to go through the exploitation process as well. By not worrying about, or not worrying so much or initially about how much exploitation is possible as a result of the vulnerabilities, just make sure that the vulnerabilities are identified and they get fixed and remediated, and then it doesn't matter how much compromise was possible as a result, because they no longer exist. So the question of how much you can exploit them is purely academic at that point. So if you're in any way curious about this, give me a call or book a demo, and I can show you how the Ronin vulnerability scanner works. Get your assets scanned and get any vulnerabilities that are present identified, so you can have them fixed and sleep well at night. So I hope that's useful, and thank you very much for watching.